See everybody today. Jason, you're back, my man.
Yeah, I have a tiny window, so still dealing with that turbulence in my personal life I mentioned to you.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sorry to hear that, but man, it's so good to see your face. It's good to see you smiling. It's good to see you with a matching skull cap with your with your fleece, like
I,
stylistically.
I'm in Southern California, and I'm native to Mediterranean weather, and the second it drops below 65 degrees, I'm cold. And I'm also old and getting bald. I have no hair, and hair is a wonderful warmth insulator. So now that we are officially in the low 60s, I'm cold.
Such a cold baby. I'm such a cold baby, bro. I'm the same. So go
Yeah,
ahead and
excited.
Chicago, it's -9 wind chill this morning.
Oh my gosh.
yeah. Okay. See now.
No good.
That's where the
So
real yeah.
I still get crap about the fact that one time I was hanging out with Christy. We had one of our friends. So she came out to visit me in LA, and we had her friend come out here from Boston. And it was typical LA winter where we were. Granted, we do get cold winds here because we're a desert, but we're probably in the, what would you say, Christy? Probably like in the low 50s, high 40s with a little bit of a wind.
Yeah, it was like
So
50s. Yeah.
yeah. So for the rest of you guys probably thinking no problem. Well, of course, me, especially for my friend in Boston from Boston, I am in like thermal. I have my leather jacket on. I've got a scarf, gloves, and a hat on. And she walks up to me, and go, "What are you doing?"
Yeah. She had like just a shawl pulled across the top of her dress, and I had like a super light cardigan over my dress. And we're like, yeah, are you ready for dinner? You're really bundled up.
Like a snowman. Oh man, cold babies are funny. Yeah, I'm the same way, man. It's anyway. It's good to see you, Andy. First time, my friend.
Second.
You made. Oh, second. Sorry,
Second.
second time. Yeah.
You weren't here the first time, but it's
Yes.
been a while.
Ah, that's right. So you were at the one that I wasn't at. Okay.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, cool. And then did David let you kind of introduce yourself to the group, or I don't know if he okay, all right, good.
He did.
So that's already happened. And then Amy, yes, good to see you as well.
Good to see everyone.
All right. Okay, so I think we're gonna just jump right into it, man. Got a good crew today. Everybody kind of wave and say hi to Guy's note taker, which is always here. Hi, Guy. Bro. You just said your note taker, man. Okay. Oh, so anyway, Guy, hi to Guy. Dave, good to see you, my man.
Hey, sir.
And then I know Tim is also going to be joining us a little bit late. So this is going to be kind of informal this week. Just more catching up. I don't have some big topic to talk about. It's more I am looking to get a feel on kind of where everybody's at and what they're seeing as we go into 2025. So it seems like this will kind of be our last chance for any type of introspection or reflection as we go into the new year. And so I'd love to hear what people are, what's cooking in your brains and hearts as far as what's going on in the future. So I'm going to start with the question: what's interesting or exciting in your world right now? And you know what? We might discuss this for the whole 60 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. We'll see. I got 6 questions in there. So, but let's start with that. And again, pick and choose which ones you want to answer. You don't have to answer them all. Whichever ones resonate, go ahead and jump in. But any takers on that one? New and exciting in your
I
world?
wouldn't mind throwing something out for discussion if when I don't know how many people here are have been getting into BlueSky. Not so I've been in BlueSky back when it was in the invite days, invite only days, and there's been a huge exodus for obvious reasons the last month or so, and a lot with the exodus. It seems like I'm noticing a lot of people are posting saying that they're seeing huge engagement numbers being driven to their articles and their sites.
From
So
BlueSky?
on the media side, that they're seeing engagement like what it used to be.
Yeah.
So even though if you don't necessarily have a ton of followers, especially since if you just migrated right from the old site to BlueSky, the engagement rate is like 3 or 4 times, and people are posting. Then they're kind of running their own A/B test, as it were, because they're showing they're posting exact same links, the exact same copy at the exact same time, and showing the amount of traffic that's being driven to their site off the articles. So just want to kind of throw that out for discussion.
Jason, can I have you give a little background on BlueSky? So what is it in layman's terms? And then you said there's an obvious reasons thing. So can you give some context for the layman on this?
Sure. In a 15-second soundbite, it's basically Twitter when Twitter first started, but with better moderation tools.
Okay.
And the influx is coming from X into BlueSky. Yeah.
Sorry, I still can't say X. I still call it Twitter.
I know. I've been training myself, and now it's sort of moot. So yeah.
Why is it moot, Christy?
Most of my clients are leaving because they're journalists.
Oh, got it. Okay, so
Yeah, they already left a couple years ago, or they're now deciding based on more recent events that it's just journalist hostile and they don't want to be there because I work for mainly B2B news organizations. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And like I said, the quickest way to anybody who's still not used to it, it's essentially Twitter when Twitter first started, but with much better moderation tools. And you actually saw with the Exodus, you saw the first real-time mass test of it, that was again similar with Twitter in the early days, was when you had the South Korea attempted coup this past week, and there were actually journalists reporting real time on the ground exactly the same way that Twitter used to do, and you were getting detailed reports, detailed videos, everything.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So
So
you're
I
saying
actually to tie into that, one of my larger B2B clients is doing some pretty interesting work and looking at the demos of how their audience is changing and what tools those younger executives are using. And we've made the decision to go ahead and start testing BlueSky effective January 1, kind of laying out our content plan now. And I'm encouraging other clients to check it out as well that kind of want that Twitter style engagement, but have left Twitter due to the hostility toward journalists. So, yeah.
Now, the interesting thing also with BlueSky, how many of you are familiar with the follower packs?
I was going to mention that follower packs, starter packs, the whole bit. So slight pitch. And David, because you're nodding along when I was saying it, so you were probably on there too when it was invite only. It's the influx of new people is pretty overwhelming, and so for us, for anyone who's been there a little bit longer, again in the invite days when it was less than, I got in when there was like maybe 300,000 users. So there's a lot of trying to maintain the culture and also training the new people to kind of on what's the best way to engage and use it. And the community, we'll see. It's what is it now, David? Up to 20 million at this point. I think at one point it was adding 1 million people a day, and this is all being run by a team of 20 people. So
wow.
And so they got a little overwhelmed for a while, but they're really fighting hard to kind of maintain the culture of helping people and directing people, and for those of us old enough to remember the Usenet days, one of the mantras is don't feed the trolls. Do not engage, don't feed, and they have their nuclear block option is an absolutely wonderful tool for that.
What's
nuclear? Yeah, and I don't mean to sidetrack this. I'll be more than happy to keep nerding it. But somebody else, if you want to drop this one.
The question was, what's interesting or exciting in your world? So this is fair game. So go ahead and take it as far as you want. Jason?
So I think, this speaks a lot to moderation, even in any community, right? I think we all have worked in this area and having to deal with communities and deal with trolls and whatnot, and it's a challenge. It's an absolute challenge to maintain quality of content and moderation and all that good stuff. So one of the things that BlueSky has done a wonderful job in, and we're hoping, I'm hoping, at least within my own community and whatnot, that it will help maintain that culture, is the moderation tools. They literally listen to the users and they try to build in certain things so that it, as opposed to Twitter, where it incentivizes bad engagement and you can monetize that, and therefore it's a loop, right? That just, as we all seen the degradation quality there, engagement. BlueSky goes the other direction, where they really try to moderate so that it increases quality. So the ethos there is that you follow people, that you engage with people, and it's in good faith, and you block hard and you block fast. And moderation tools like the nuclear option. So unlike Twitter, if I decide to block David will never ever see anything I post. He can never reply. Anything I replies, it's completely gone. It's nothing. You cannot latch on and kind of coattail somebody's bigger engagement. The other thing that they also do is, maybe you want to have a slight step below that. You don't necessarily want to completely shut out David. David, forgive me, I'm using examples here.
That's appropriate. That's appropriate.
Twitter,
You really
Blue
should
Sky.
block.
So if David decides to quote me on something, so one of the things, really negative things that Twitter did was, a lot of people would quote dunk. If you guys are familiar with that, I take a quote, I post it, I reply to it, and I would make fun of it, right? Or dunk on you, right? As the kids say, quote dunk. So that is the negative engagement that then would get a lot of eyeballs. Then you can monetize that, right? Just like anything, engagement. So what BlueSky does is, you now have this option to remove your quote. So if David attempts to take one of my posts, quotes it to dunk on me, I can go in there, but I don't really necessarily want to block David, because maybe for whatever reason I don't. I can disengage my post, so we can't use that. So there's a lot of lessons there to be learned, I think, for all of us, in just terms of like understanding community moderation, all that good stuff. It's giving a lot of the control, as it were, back to the user. Does it take more effort? Absolutely more effort. But that's the trade-off, right? Instead of just serving up content to people and they're sitting back passively, you're now asking them, you got to do some work too. You've got to go look for that starter pack. You've got to go block people or curate your own feed and content.
There's a lot of that happening this last year on LinkedIn as well. If you look at all the let's say sales gurus out there, that there's a handful of probably 50 to 100 people that from 2008 to 2018 they had one or two big exits, where maybe they started, I'm making this up, but they started at ZoomInfo as an SDR, and then ZoomInfo went public, and then they had 4-year golden handcuffs, and then they left with 5 million in ZoomInfo stock. Well, now because of that one successful run, now they go create courses on how to be the best sales leader ever, blah, blah, blah. And because that person has amassed a following, I, as a 22-year-old that just got out of college, could go find some post they made that had tons of engagement. And then I could reshare that, comment 2 or 3 sentences that maybe ChatGPT wrote for me. And then I'm essentially using the fact that I added them in my post to try and grab all of their followers as like a second-degree connection or whatever, to see all my shit that's not even valuable. And
right.
And I think about that, or like, I graduated college in 2008, and back when I was in college, Facebook actually like was a lot more valuable than it is now to me. And I think, God, would I pay $50 a month just to have a different LinkedIn experience that used to be much more valuable, where all that stuff, where almost like when you write a college essay, the college professor can throw your essay through some software that says, was this in any way generated by a computer, right?
Yep.
I wish I could pay a premium on LinkedIn to automatically remove like non-unique content.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be sick. Do you find that they're too big to be super receptive to feedback, huh? LinkedIn as an organization.
Since I got,
Yeah, they are receptive to feedback tied to the products they sell for advertising, or when they want to go sell 5,000 premium licenses to a big tech company that's paying them $1 million, they will listen to feedback from that perspective because that's how they get paid. But from the random user that just gives a shit, they couldn't care less.
Right.
So what's interesting about the Blooming Premium that reminds me of something else that BlueSky is starting to dabble into, which I again want to keep an eye on because of the ramifications and just lessons to be learned, is they're looking into adding premium and paid tiers. So they're going to still keep the platform free for your basic use, all the good basic functions they have now. But they're going to have tiers so that if like you're a professional organization that wants to have more streaming videos, more than a 30-second cap, or basically other things, you didn't pay for that.
Yep.
So that you can do it.
What have you seen on BlueSky in terms of articles versus video? Because there's a lot of talk recently about kind of things transitioning away from articles into video, which was going to be my answer to your question, Johnny. So I'm curious, with using BlueSky as a test case, do you see much video there, or is it other things?
Not really, mainly because of the limitations, right? The technical and hardware limitation, I'm sure for BlueSky themselves, that so they don't want to they don't have the bandwidth to support that, I think. However, they do, unlike Instagram and Twitter, they actually promote that they are fully supportive of links. So, you know, in Twitter and Instagram, it's impossible to have outgoing links and whatnot. And whereas BlueSky, they're like, absolutely, we're here, we're here to support you. You want to post up, you know, you talk about, again, just like anybody else, right? If you have a following, you build up your presence, and you go, hey, here's link to my site, boom, done. It's a seamless, frictionless experience. So that's another reason that a lot of people who started using a lot more are saying that they see so much more engagement in their BlueSky posts, even with maybe 1/10 of their followers compared to Twitter or Instagram.
Well, there's also a monetization path for BlueSky there, right? Like if I happily allow Johnny to go promote his book or something like that, right? And I allow him to push people out of my site into Johnny's to go buy a $40 book. Well, if I, as BlueSky or any platform for that matter, start to notice a big traction there, I could reach out to Johnny and say, hey, Johnny, I can offer you promotion where you can have sponsored posts. It's going to cost you X per 1,000 impressions or whatever. But oh, by the way, I want a 10% kickback on your book.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely. That's why I think it's going to be interesting to keep a really close eye, because it's still such the early stage to see what they can do and what the implications are, especially for what we do.
Good stuff, man. That's exactly what I was hoping for, Jason. Thank you for bringing all that. And then I think that does then lead into you, Greg. You were saying what's exciting you, or what's interesting to you right now, is the exodus from.
Well, I don't know if it's true. I'm hearing certain people say that, and I'm wondering. Obviously, video is a bigger deal today than it was 5 years ago. But the question is, at what point are articles going to seem like the little thing, and videos, like when are videos going to overtake articles is the main way to express content.
They already have, Greg. It's called TikTok.
Yeah, I suppose so. See, I won't. I don't use TikTok, so
neither do I. But you know, it's and I say this to folks we used to license long form articles to people. Amy, knows well. People would license a full article or a review or something, and now they want a logo or an accolade, right? Tell me visually what I need to know because I'm too lazy to read this full piece of content and make a decision for myself. And so our business has gone from largely licensing, articles and text to licensing things like logos and quotes and accolades, right? This publication, this entity says that this thing is great and here's why. Or this is the best toaster for July of 2024. Are the things that sell in our world these days.
Andy, do
and
you
that's a
think that
very
that's
interesting dynamic.
because, Andy, do you think that some of that is because if you think of like a bell curve of age of people in their profession, that bell curve is starting to be more people that grew up with iPhones in high school, and so just the kind of content that they kind of grew into was not reading the newspaper with their parents on Sunday mornings, but it was looking at crap on their iPad?
Yeah, 100%. So, as more of the content, and not only that, but publishers, and you guys are just talking about some of it, are encouraging folks to share their content, right? It used to be, it was really hard to access magazine, newspaper content, right? If you wanted to share it, it was a pain in the butt. And so you came to somebody like me and I'd create a reprint for you. And that reprint in the early days was ink on paper. Then it moved to digital and we were sharing a PDF. Then it became posted to my website. And then as publishers were trying to get eyeballs and generate traffic and monetize through, through banner ads, it was more about, hey, we want page views, right? We want page views, we want eyeballs on the page. Let's make it easy. And now you see, New York Times, you can gift 10 articles a month to people now, right? And so instead of having to own it or reprint it or license it, I just gift it to people. If I'm an independent financial advisor, I want to send that article to 10 customers. They're behind the paywall when I send them that link. Which removes the need for people to to want to pay for it. That said, there's other things that are still valuable. There's still value in people's archives. There's value in historical context to things. A lot of the stuff that we sell goes into things like documentaries, TV and film. So you see the murder mystery stuff that's on, right? Everybody loves the true crime, docudramas. Every local newspaper's coverage of those events is thrown into those things. So we license a lot of that kind of stuff to people. There's still value in that. There will largely remain value in that for a long time, but that volume has come way down. I mean, since the writer's strike, I would bet production in Hollywood across the board is off probably 40 or 50%. And that extends to the streamers as well. So like Netflix's and the Apples of the world, at one point it was a race to produce content for them. Like, let's get the most stuff out there. We want to have the most stuff on our platform to attract the most eyeballs. And now they're like, whoa, we're spending $10 billion a year creating content and we're only generating an extra, million subscribers. It's not, the economics aren't there. So they've pulled back tremendously.
So how have y'all been keeping up? I mean, just what you described, the amount of change, just year over year, like in terms of, how it used to be and how it is now. How are y'all keeping up? How have y'all been able to keep up with that and not just become irrelevant?
No, I mean, my concern in my business has always been not my competitors. Like, I'm never really worried about, the competitor is going to unseat me. It's always been being disintermediated from the process, right? The publisher then starts to know enough about the rights that they have to their content, and they can kind of put all the things together and sort of value it fairly in the marketplace. It's becoming easier for them to do. There's still a lot of art to what we do as opposed to just pure science. But there's certainly, some existential threats, and AI is a huge one. 2 years ago, somebody wanted to have, to have a specific article or whatnot for a purpose. They would look for it. They'd come to us and they would license it. Now, anybody can go to one of these LLMs and say, write me a 2,000 word article on why you should max out investment in your HSA account. and write it in the voice of the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times. And it's done, right? And it didn't cost them anything. They didn't have to hire a journalist. They have to, obsess about it. They might have some compliance issues, but for the most part, that removes the need, unless you need the actual authority of the brand on it, which sometimes you do and sometimes you don't. That's concerning. Now, all of that said, knock on wood, we're about to have our best, most successful year ever, right? So, we've been able to pivot for our partners and find other areas of inside of their business where we can help them to monetize their content, their brand, their events, etc. And so we've been successful in making that pivot. I just don't know how far down the road does that take us. It depends on where the industry goes.
Andy, what do you think of that whole write in the voice of? Because I've tried it a few times and I'm not impressed. And it might be a question of how much content the LLM has to go on. Like right in the voice of the New York Times, they're going to have a lot more content than if I point them to my site and say, write in my voice. So it might just be that, but I'm just wondering if anybody has seen a good example of that, right in the style of Stephen King or something. And
I can tell you that's all about training the model. So if you give the model enough examples to train on, you'd be amazed at how good it gets. And I just went through this with some of my folks.
Have you seen it do well?
Yeah, I've done it myself, right? So when I first started to use, ChatGPT, it was very robotic, right? And I was like, okay, it's very apparent that this is not coming from me. I attended a couple of different, seminars and just kind of messed around with it a little bit. And by, doing some things in the setup, adding a bio, giving it a couple of writing samples, asking it to then describe those writing samples, like what is my writing style based upon the examples that I've provided to you, and then it spits that back to you, and then you ask it to transform that as if you were describing it to a ghostwriter describing your style, and then you take that and you add that to your profile in ChatGPT. It is shockingly accurate, down to grabbing things like the typical phrases that you open and end your letters or emails with. Like, I mean, it is unbelievable how different just those couple of little writing samples can make it. If you start to add, more than that, right? And so if you gave it 10 writing samples or 50 or 100 or a website's full of writing examples, shockingly good.
It's also quirky with word choice. And like I was having to do something like, I don't know, 6 months ago, and I took a first crack at something. I was like, oh, that's like 80% there. And then I looked at what I asked it to do, and I just changed one word. But in my mind, the two words I used were very much synonyms. And so I found that sometimes just by adjusting one or two words in your request, it's like not that it likes a certain word better, but it better understands certain words that to our brain are very much the same.
And it's very much an iterative process, right? So you get a result back, and then you can massage that result as much as possible. And you can do it in sort of natural language. Make this more concise, add more detail on the benefits, pull in this or that, add a graphic. It's sort of like, I think of it like if you're, I'll update myself, the Star Trek days, right? Where you're talking to the computer on the bridge, right? And you're asking it to do all these things and it just did it. Now it's kind of like that, it just does it.
Yeah.
Andy, what's a funny example of this? And I work with Tim, who's on the phone, and Tim gave me a homework assignment 2 or 3 days ago. And I thought, oh, I could sit here for an hour and write this. And then I thought, you know what? I'm going to put this exact homework assignment, and Tim doesn't know this, so it's kind of funny. I asked ChatGPT to do this thing, and not only did it come up with in 12 seconds the 6 or 7 things I knew needed to be there, but it also gave me 3 or 4 things that I might have eventually remembered in 3 days.
Yeah.
And then I adjusted one word from, I think, publisher to digital publisher, and then it got like 30% better. And so this homework assignment that I gave Tim back in like an hour or two, I was 90% done in like 15 minutes.
Yeah. It's, you know,
Oh, Tim is so mad at you, bro. Oh,
Well,
yeah, it is definitely worth, you know, if you haven't, you know, spent significant time, you know, with AI for whatever reason or purpose you might use it. You know, I just used it for the first time for a really large data analysis program where I uploaded a spreadsheet and I asked it to crunch that data. It would have taken me days to do that
Mm.
manually. And it spit it back in a matter of, you know, of minutes. And then it took some massaging, but it took all of the grunt work out of it.
Yeah, I just went through a pretty intensive SWOT process with a client that led us to a lot of these conclusions about we're using 50% of our posts is our goal to have video on our socials. They're using more videos on their websites. I mean, it was pretty intense SWOT. I used ChatGPT to research the competitor list they gave me just to get me started because I wasn't
Yep.
as familiar with the industry as they are. And it just got me to, you know, really kind of get a good starting point of what are their websites like? What is their social like? What articles have they posted? How often do they post? And with social, it's hard because it can't access social because it's not ChatGPT doesn't have a login,
Right.
but it can
Yep.
look at things that are out there in the public domain. I mean, they had given us, all the people on this team had about 2 weeks to get all their respective parts done. I think if I had tried to look up everything individually, that would have been the entire first week.
Yeah.
It would have been so intense. So I love using it for that kind of stuff. I'm fortunate to be gifted as a really good copywriter, so I almost never use it for copywriting.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
What I find, you know, Christy, on the copywriting side is that I use it to kind of organize my thoughts. Like I'll give it the bullet points and have it spit something back, and then that's done sort of the organizational part of it, and then I'm filling in the actual, you know,
that makes
verbiage,
sense. Yeah.
you know,
that
beyond
makes
that.
sense.
But it gives me the outline, and to Dave's point, it occasionally will find, you know, an extra point or two that I haven't thought about or didn't
That's
include.
fair. I should probably do that exercise because I'm sure I could be missing something for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one other pro tip, and I'll just warn everybody, by default, the setting is to improve the model for everybody. So if you're working on things that are proprietary, shut that shit off. Like
Yeah.
right away, shut that off. Because when you like AI can only answer what's already out there and been answered. Right. So once you put your stuff out there and you've asked ChatGPT something, the vacuum cleaner's on, right? It's sucked all that stuff in, and your competitor asks a similar or same question, it's going to get your answer, the benefit of your intelligence in that. So turn that off. You know, keep it in your environment.
well,
Craig
isn't
mentioned video and then sorry, you go ahead. You haven't talked much, man.
I was going to say that there's also the temperature setting that you can use there, and temperature, how much it's going to vary the answers. I posted the rundown from Columbia Journalism Review into the chat here,
Great.
and they actually tested the accuracy of ChatGPT. And what they found is if you have the temperature set on high, which is high variability of answers, you'll ask the same question and you'll get 3 different answers.
Yeah.
So you need to, as you were saying, you need to kind of know what you're doing here to make sure that you get consistency of results. Otherwise, you're just going to get randomness in there and you're going to get those hallucinations. How many people here, what do you use the robots.txt file to ban the AI scrapers from your sites? How many people know what I'm talking about? Yeah, and you do? All right. Where do you get a list of AIs to ban? I've got mine off of GitHub. Where do you guys get yours?
I don't remember where I got it. I did it 7 months ago. So I'll have to look at that and see.
Yeah, my client's tech guy handles it, so I know of it, but I wasn't involved in setting it up. Yeah.
Yeah, the business model that I thought showed promise was companies licensing their content to these AI companies because the AI companies got money coming out of their ears. and you'd think they'd want valuable content to train their data sets on. What CJR found was even if you have your content licensed to ChatGPT, that does not, like New York Times and Atlantic put it in there. You ask a question specifically about a paragraph that appeared in New York Times, doesn't show up as coming from the New York Times. If
Right.
you've had your site blocked to the scrapers, guess what? Your content still shows up because somebody aggregated or scraped it and put it somewhere else.
Yep.
So there's still a lot of kinks to be worked out of this damn thing. There's also that whole House of Lords report that I put in the email there.
Yep.
Go to like page 69. That's where the action starts happening with what their recommendations are for how to save news. There's some stuff there that I find frustrating and infuriating. There's a whole bunch of hand waving, like the BBC needs to innovate. But there is some stuff that, yeah, exactly. How much fun is that? But there is some specific stuff there about white labeling sites and advertising that I think is still going to be the path forward for news producers, for content creators. Anyway, because that's how the ad money comes to the people who actually do the work as opposed to the scrapers. And that's going to be about attribution. And I think that's where a lot of the action is going to be for the next year.
All right, I'm going to push us actually, not right now, because I want to get back to Will. So Will, get ready, because I'm going to bring it back to you. I think I'm going to skip to one of the last questions, which is vision, or what's coming down the pipe. And Dave, I think that probably fits in that conversation to hear kind of I want to hear everybody's kind of prophecies and prognostications about what's coming, as concrete as possible. And so we'll move into that. But Will, I'd like to hear what you were going to say about video.
Oh, I just video was mentioned, and we're we're multimedia with a digital news site and radio stations, and we do some streaming and that kind of thing. And so we've been trying to crack this nut as a small team. How do we generate more content and content across the board, but not stale talking head kind of, not just reproducing the exact same content with the reporter saying what they just said in digital. And I asked my GM to send me a link because he was talking about this software that they've started experimenting with called Notebook LM Podcast. Anybody know, heard of that? I mean, I guess that's what it's called. I don't know what the company is, or if that's the company. Notebook LM Podcast. You drop a link, or possibly we've experimented with a couple of links, but you drop a link in there, and a man and a woman begin talking for varying lengths about the article, and and our show host, and he's also our sports director, and he's got to synthesize a lot of local sports content and things like that. Oh, I see. Yeah. And he has tried it on a few things. It's like this is actually really good. It mispronounces names occasionally, and you can't edit that. But just like the content, not so much video, but the way that content, even original content using AI can be generated if you're using it to riff on your own stuff in order to expand your own platforms. That's something we're experimenting with as a small team.
It's from Google, Will. Google produces Notebook LM.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Is that what it is? They've been using it. So we were just talking about it, and I remembered it as Greg mentioned producing video.
So just to chime in, so with if you Google Notebook LM, ever have like a really long PDF that you don't want to read, or like something? So I've done this a few times. It was really heady advertising and marketing PDF. It was like 100 pages. I just dropped it into Notebook LM, and it produced a 10-minute podcast discussing the key points. It was fantastic because then I could get my workout in, listen to a 10-minute AI podcast, and feel like an expert after. It was a nice way of digesting and listening to something, and I've done that actually a few times.
Almost like a Spark Notes for like book reports.
Oh,
Yeah.
totally. And
Yeah.
it'll consume YouTube videos, it'll consume audio files, it'll consume PDFs. Like, so you can just throw a whole bunch of stuff in there and have it produce a 10-minute podcast, then you listen to it, while you're doing something else, and it's just like, you're an instant genius. So
Yeah, I think 2025, my big prediction for 2025 is we're going to see individual agents that users will use so that they can convert any kind of content from article to bullet points, from article to audio, from audio to article, so you can view any kind of content any way you want, and the AI agent will go out and find that stuff for you, and you'll have your preferences like it used to be on those old, like on the old Yahoo homepage. You'd say, I'm interested in science and art and literature or whatever. You'll do the same sort of thing with your AI agent, refine it over time. It'll go out, find content for you, and bring it in. And then the cool thing about that is integrating that with paid content. So there's going to have to be some sort of like you'll set a daily budget or a monthly budget. I'm willing to spend $30 a month on content that fits my, what I like. And the AI agent will go out, find that content, pay the content owner, bring it in, transform it into the style that you want. I think
So
we're
the question
very,
is,
very
who's
close
gonna
to that. I think
gatekeep
it's going to
that?
happen this next year.
Is that Amazon or Apple? Like, is
It
that
might
going to
be.
happen through your
I'm not sure who's going to do
Alexa
it.
or your device?
Yeah, I'm not sure who's going to do it, who's going to win that, but that's going to happen very soon. The technology's there. It's just a matter of working out the details.
I don't
And
know.
for anybody who wants to hear, he and I did an interview and talked a lot about this actually on if you go to datajoe.substack.com, and the interview I did with Greg, about an hour talking about related content on that. So go ahead, I interrupted somebody.
I was going to say that getting people to pay more in subscriptions to a service is going to be difficult. People aren't adding more subscriptions. We're seeing that across the board. What
Right,
they
but
will replace another subscription with this one if it's
Yes.
better.
Yes, I agree that people aren't going to be subscribing to a particular magazine. They're going to be paying money for the content that I'm interested in, narrowly defined, gather it wherever it needs to be gathered from. So it won't be a subscription to some particular thing. It'll be a subscription that includes content from a bunch of different sources.
Apple News.
Maybe, but I mean, subscription publishers are going to have to create some method to let the AI communicate with their CMS to say, yes, you can have this article for 25 cents or whatever the heck it is.
Micropayments.
Yeah, well, sort of, but it'll all be behind the scenes. The user won't be doing any of it. The AI will be doing it.
Robot.
How many here have heard the phrase beyond SEO? Now the action is in this growing field of GEO. How many of you guys have heard about that one? Generative AI engine optimization. SEO is for the search engines, which are starting to see their usage do that as AI is starting to increase. And so what I've been concentrating on for the last couple of months is at how does GEO work? How do you make sure that your content is the type that is going to get picked up on generative AI with the thing that I was sharing about, the CJR and then the House of Lords report and on a bunch of other things have been saying that the problem with AI is that the attribution, they don't have it down the way that Google does going to canonical. If you're the first person who put in all the sweat to do the investigative journalism report, Google says, here you go, pat on the head. We're going to throw the traffic your way. AI don't do that. AI don't play that yet. Anyway, go ahead, guys.
I can't wait to see the brigade of snake oily generative engine optimization. SEO is already bad enough.
I know, baby. I know.
I'm right here, man. I can hear you.
No, I think no that but you have to admit there's a lot of people who like claim to just like developers have. I think every profession has some degree of it. People who call themselves journalists and like don't really practice any of the craft or art of journalism, and so I think SEO has it pretty bad because you can be an instant SEO expert if you claim to be. So
Well, look at what's happened on the affiliate side, right? Like Google made one little tweak in their algorithm, and all of a sudden, everybody that was raking in, tens of millions of dollars on affiliate, sales is now scurrying for, for the shadows. I've been to a couple of those affiliate marketing, things that these guys host, and I got to tell you, the amount of stuff that's bought and sold, like everything is suspect, right? From the content being written by the companies that are providing the links to the retail, sales, to the traffic, to the, it's unbelievable. Everything was bought and sold. It was all sort of,
yeah,
just
it's
I
like
walked out of there
sometimes
and
it
I felt
just
like I
feels
needed a
like
shower.
yeah, it just feels like there's a giant whirlpool of like people getting one over on each other.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
I try to avoid it as much as I possibly can to stay away from all that. There are people doing authentic, genuine, good quality things. Hang out with
exactly.
those types.
Yeah. But yeah, it was interesting. I mean, there's even, there are folks there that say, hey, we'll give you, like a suppression list. Like if somebody signs up to get your content, there are people that, their whole business model is they sign up for lists, right? They put their email address or their phone number in, and then they wait to see whether you or anybody else responds to that phone number or calls that number or emails them, right? And so if it's outside of, hey, you didn't disclose that you were going to sell my information, right? I only use this to sign up for your thing, right? And now I get a phone call from a car dealer. Well, I didn't authorize you to give my info to the car dealer, so they file a lawsuit.
Whoa.
And so, some of these people they're professionals. This is what they do. They have 100 different burner cell phones. They have 100 different email addresses. They use one to sign up for one specific thing. And when they get offers that are not related to that or solicitations that are not related to that, they file litigation. And they are successful. And they, a lot of times it's cheaper for somebody to settle out of court than it is to go defend yourself, even though you've done nothing wrong. And so, they now have like a suppression list of known litigants. So if you're going to send out offers, don't send them to these people because they're just in the business of suing you, right? So, and there's businesses around that on both sides of the equation. Very interesting to see that those things are things, but they are.
Y'all got my head spinning. What else? What else is coming? What else is coming down the pipe? And it's fast. Oh, go ahead, Kenny.
I was going to say one thing I would like to see, and something I've thought about experimenting with at Red Bank Green is, like really just creating a more closed garden. Right now, I understand like anybody should be able to like access the news, but I really think that like maybe Red Bank Green being something that you have to log into to read is a real possibility. I don't think it's too much of a hurdle. Like I think a lot of publishers are terrified that it would really disrupt traffic patterns, and it probably would to some degree. But I'm happy to be the hamster or the guinea pig because I'm a fan of like maybe it's from my software background, just moving fast and breaking shit, and I break shit all the time, unfortunately. Just seeing what that looks like because I think there's an opportunity to become something that to use that like walled garden analogy or really just become more of like an online community center, like whatever like Facebook originally intended to be, which is like a true social network, which it's not anymore. It's reels. Like it's reels and it's like, algorithms trying to figure out what's going to get you to engage or stay locked in so you forgot that a half hour passed. It's like how can I create that login, and a unified login for a publisher would enable probably a more native commenting system. It would like on Red Bank Green, one of our ads is like an event listing ad for Triumph Brewery, which has events all the time. Like, what if you could say, oh, hey, remind me when this is going to happen? We already know who it is when they're logged in. So I think there's a lot of things where we could do a much better job than the things we're already doing right now if we just knew who the user was.
Kenny,
And
I bet that because you're a geographically focused, I remember from last month, like you're geographically focused, you have a sense of community around that a
Mhm.
lot of people don't. And so I bet that you'd be successful at that with some sort of offer. And I don't mean a monetary offer, but something that when I gave you my email address, you said, hey, we've just released a monthly calendar of every live music, community event, whatever. I can push this to you every Thursday morning. Give me your email address once. Like that would be valuable enough for my email. And then to your point, for all those events that you could have one-click sign up and registration type stuff because you already had it.
Right. My thing is like, so sometimes there's that angle of doing it. Like, my thing is like, I like to like really just get down and authentic with, and I like to tell them like, this is what I'm trying to do. Like, I think, like, I think the value of us coming together and having this community on Red Bank Green is really important. And I could go through the reasons that's really important. I just want to tell them like, this is what we're doing, and this is like the vision. This is how I want it to play out. This is why I think it's like really good for everyone. And we'd love to have you. If you don't want to go, that's fine too. But like, and I probably started with a few of like the more influential, like Facebook when it started it was only the Ivies, right? And then they slowly opened it up to like the ones a little less prestigious than the Ivies. So then eventually it was like opened up to everybody, but starting with like just a select few and then kind of building around that. Cause I don't have a set runway. There's no burn rate. Like I can take as long as I want to do all of this and take as much time as I think is needed. I can have patience to try and get it right. But that's probably the angle that I would take is like, hey, we're trying to do something special here. Do you want to be a part of it? Otherwise, like, I don't know, go read Asbury Park Press or whatever. So
What's the
I have
philosophical?
suspicion. Go ahead.
I was going to ask Kenny, what's the philosophical train of thought that leads you to this course of action?
Well, I think it's really that, like, I think I can do a better job for the community at Red Bank. Like, I think I can do a better job at doing what we do, connecting them with people in the community, connecting them with some of the small businesses.
Yeah.
And, when you say like philosophy, are you talking about the reason for Red Bank Green or the reason for a unified login?
You're answering the question. Yeah. Like what was the thought process that led you to maybe potentially do this,
Yeah. Well, it was mainly, I'll tell you what, it was comments, because comments are such a pain in the ass. And so we had to settle on the discuss comments thread, but I don't like that discuss owns the lot. So it was a very practical reasoning behind it. And like, I want comments, but nobody likes discuss, so people don't comment. But I can't have anonymous comments because then people write libelous things tearing each other apart. And then so I need I need to build my own comment system that requires a phone number, like to authenticate. And that way I can ban somebody. They can be anonymous, but if they break the rules, they're banned and it's tied to their phone number. So it's a big pain in the ass for them to try and circumvent so that was the more practical reason. But then I was like, oh, but think of all the other amazing things that we could do. So I don't know if it's something that's going to happen specifically next year, but like it's got to come. Right?
Yeah.
It can't like be like we're just giving our content away for free and don't know anybody or anything about anybody that's on our site. Like if we want data, which I think is part of the media data collaborative, right? Like we kind of have to know something about who it is that's part of our community.
Kenny, I'll give you a funny example. Like I don't know if you guys remember this.
Sorry, let me.
Oh yeah,
I interrupted Greg, and I got to give Greg his chance, and then you.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I wrote it in the comments. I was just saying my concern is I'm not sure that the era of people going to individual sites and logging into sites, I'm not sure that's a long play. I think that has a short life.
I don't know. I think it's hard to predict stuff like that. I think
It
comes
is hard to
cycles,
predict. That's just my prediction.
and there's always counterpoints, right?
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, Andy, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I was just going to say, so back in the day, IBM produced a commercial, and this is like the dawn of the internet, like 93, 94, like, and it was like this guy sitting there and he's like, look what I can do. I can create a flaming logo and I can create the spinning logo, right? And I can create the flashing logo. And the person standing behind was like, it'd be really cool is like if you could tie our website to our inventory so that people would know if a product was in stock when they called us up or they went to our site. And the guy's like, I don't know how to do that. Right? It's like, and then, so very shortly after that, I was involved in a meeting. I was working at CMP Media at the time, big tech publisher. and they were really getting into selling, digital ads. And, most people were still on dial-up then, right? And so when you loaded a bunch of ads around the page took forever to load. And we were a B2B business. And I said, people don't really like, it's a crap user experience for somebody to come to the website and it take 10 minutes to load the page, right? Now it's 10 milliseconds to load the page and it's a crap user experience. And there's all this stuff that intrudes on it. And most of the sites that I'm going to, whether it's enthusiast stuff or hardcore news, there's so many distractions around that. Is that real? And those distractions are more and more, but they're less and less valuable to the publisher, right? The ad rates are going down, you're selling less ads, like all that stuff, but they keep layering stuff on because they're trying to hold on to it. What you're really trying to do is connect audiences together, right? Here's your advertiser audience, here's your reader audience, and tell me about it so that I can reach directly out to them as if you weren't there in some way, right? I want you like, so, Kenny, in your example, you want to connect the reader to the business, right? Or to the festival or whatever it might be. So if you know a lot, and this is what first party data is all about, right? Is collecting a lot of information on the people that are coming to your site and then using that to make their experience better, right? And provide them with offers and incentives and things that make sense for them without it getting too far over the line. And I think the problem that most publishers, at least in my experience, have had is that they always cross the line. They start to get drunk on the revenue and then they fudge up the experience because it's like, hey, I made a couple of pennies here. Let me see how much crap I can cram down that pipe. And then it's like, okay, now people don't want it anymore. So, danger in that, but 100% collect as much information as you can. Like I was controlled circulation, fill out this qualification card, right? This survey, tell me who you are, what you do, what products and services you are responsible for, blah, blah, blah. It was like a 4-page thing that we collected on every single subscriber. And in return for you sharing that information, I gave you my magazine, my newspaper, right? Or access to my website. And that, that was a B2B thing. There's no reason why it can't be a B2C thing as well. You just have to be respectful of that data that they're sharing. And most, like I said, most publishers are not.
Absolutely. Yeah, some of the
I got laughed out of a meeting when I
balance.
said we should turn off all the banner ads, like get rid of all this crap, strip it all away, give people the page, without any of that stuff, but then connect them to the OEMs and the manufacturers and the folks that are willing to pay for a profile of, hey, show me all the engineers that specify semiconductors in the transportation industry, blah, 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 blah. Well, here you go.
So they laughed you out of the room for that.
They did. And they continued to sell ads, and then eventually they sold the company.
Yeah. All right, we're just about at time. So I feel like this conversation could keep going for another 2 hours, probably, or at least an hour. So I'm gonna try, and I'd encourage you all, if there's anything you want that kind of got started in seed form in this conversation that you want to chase down a little bit, let's start it in the email thread. Ask your questions in the email thread, and I'll think about this because there's a lot. This was very useful for me. A lot that came up that I'm interested in chasing down a little bit more. So I'll have my questions as well, and I'd encourage anybody here to do the same thing. But as always, I love seeing your faces and just having these organic conversations happen. So I'll look forward to seeing you all in January. Gosh, dude, I don't want to go, but all right. Anyway, I'll see y'all later.
Good stuff. Thanks, everybody.
Johnny.
Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.